Hello everyone, and welcome to the Connecting Communities Conference, round 2, talking about industry today. Alright, so I'm Derek, I'll be your host this evening, I'm from Chittenango Landing Canal Museum in upstate New York, right outside of Syracuse, where they rebuilt dry dock and industrial complex on the Erie Canal. We're one of 2 rebuilt canal dry dock facilities that we know of in the United States, and the only one on the Erie Canal. Chittenango also is a unique community. Today is Ozstravaganza. They're the birthplace of L. Frank Baum, writer of The Wizard of Oz. So that's our other claim to fame here in Chittenango.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Carly Annable. I am the director of the Baker Heritage City, Oregon. Baker City is 2 hours west of Boise, so we're pretty far east in the state of Oregon. The Baker Heritage Museum is a 33,000 square foot rebuilt natatorium. So originally it was built to house an indoor swimming pool and ballroom. Over time, we've kind of redeveloped it into the Baker County Museum. We focus on the development of Baker County, so logging, ranching, mining, as well as just the overall history of Eastern Oregon. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about industry.
Awesome. Hey guys, and I'm Untitled Chapter. We're from the Museum of South Texas History. We're in South Texas, really close to the border, maybe 10, 12 miles away in a city called Edinburgh. We call our area the Rio Grande Valley. It consists of 4 counties, and it's in the southernmost tip of Texas. So if you go all the way down to the tip on the Gulf Coast, that's where our area is. We have the Rio Grande River, which is a natural and international boundary, and it's difficult, and we're a regional museum, so it's impossible to talk about, the Texas history without northeastern Mexico. There's been a lot of trade and industry there too, so happy to be here.
All right. Great. Well then, let's get started. So, each one of our museums here submitted a question that would be asked of each of us. We'll each respond for about 5 minutes. So we'll start with our first one, which is, are there any industries that are particularly unique to your region that have helped it to grow or that have persisted over the years? Anyone want to start out on this? Okay, well then, it's time for you. Renee, you got an answer? Yeah.
All right, yeah, absolutely. So, I was trying to think about an anecdotal business story that would work. And one industry that we do have that was pretty unique is the sugarcane industry. That really started down here around the turn of the century, a little bit before that. There was a man by the name of John Klausner who began buying land in 1884, and he established his plantation in 1904. This plantation was for all types of fruits and vegetables, but something that was unique that came down here was sugarcane. I learned that there are only 3 places in the United States that do sugarcane: Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. And what he did is also he started doing hybrid seeds, where he crossed Mexican sugarcane with seeds from Louisiana as well. The sugarcane really exploded, and in 1904 at the World's Fair in St. Louis, he took big stalks of sugarcane from down here in the Rio Grande Valley, and he actually won the gold medal for the finest sugarcane in all of the world. And this was in 1904. By then, he had about 800 acres, which were dedicated to sugarcane. And this is kind of the unique part down here, is that the sugarcane was processed into something called piloncillo. Piloncillo is basically like a brown sugar that's compacted into these cones. And they're used often in Mexican cooking, especially with hot chocolate, with a lot of sweets and desserts. It's basically like a raw sugar, but just in a cone form, and from there you would shave that off, and it's used even till today. So he responded to the demand which was down here, which is specifically for that. I'm not really too sure if he exported too much. I imagine he did, but it's interesting that he did work and making a big sugar mill, and also really did a lot with irrigation. He did the first early irrigation before the big kind of industrial stuff happened down here. Now his business ran until about, I believe, 1921. By then the plantation was mostly sold off. It ceased to exist as far as to the extent that it was before. But many years later, in 1970, about 100 farmers joined together and they established the Rio Grande Valley, Texas Sugar Growers Incorporated. So it's really a communal thing. They pledged money and cropland, and today, 1.5 million tons of sugar cane from about 40,000 acres, which is about the size that John Klausner has, are grown in a 3-county area. Something that I don't know if it's unique just down here in the Rio Grande Valley, but we have something called Texas snow. And what that is, it doesn't really snow down here that often, but I remember this when I was a kid too. You'd be playing outside and all of a sudden, like, little flakes of burnt stuff just falling from the air. And it was cool because we smeared it on ourselves and everything. And what that was when they would burn the sugarcane fields before harvest, all of that ash was basically falling down. And we call that Texas snow. I don't know if that's throughout all of Texas, but down here, that's what we yeah, that's what we call it here too. Right.
Here, we'll go from Texas snow to just snow. Snow and more snow. Here, up in Chittenango and in central New York in general, really upstate New York, for the first 100 years, really the giant industrial mover was the Erie Canal. This is here. I'll tell you all about that. Anyway, so one of the first real big industries that we had up around here was thanks to the creation of the canal. In 1819, when they were building the canal, hydraulic cement, which is cement that hardens underwater, had never been produced in the United States before. But in 1819, Candace White, who was an engineer on the canal, he traveled to England to study their canals and learned all about hydraulic cement, discovered limestone necessary to make hydraulic cement in Chittenango, New York. That was actually kind of a large economic driver for us. In fact, a side canal was commissioned in 1820 to go into the village of Chittenango. A large reason for that is the second commissioned side canal of the Erie Canal. And a large reason for that, we believe, was so they could get to the hydraulic cement factories that were there, that were essential to supporting the continued building of the canal. And there are remnants of this hydraulic line mining and cement process all over this region, especially out in a little to the west of us in Fayetteville and DeWitt. Spoiler alert, we have to talk about how that leads in a couple minutes. But then also, another big industry for us has been agriculture, especially here in Madison County. It's been exploded when the Erie Canal came around. Dairy has been a wildly successful product here forever. Well, not forever, but for about the last 200 years. Dairy's everywhere. I remember meeting the dairy princess. She thought she was happy. She was important enough to meet Bill Clinton, I remember, at the State Fair. That was when he was president, too. But there was that. And also in our region, Chittenango, Canastota, right by Oneida Lake, which is, the land to the south of it is unique. It's essentially a giant swamp known as the mucklands, which initially they used it in the 1800s to grow celery, which I learned recently was in the 1800s a delicacy enjoyed only by the rich because it's difficult to transport. And luckily we got the Erie Canal, so you can transport it relatively easily. And more recently, onions are huge, especially in Canastota. In Chittenango itself, if you went here today, you wouldn't know it, but there were numerous factories that sprang up in our very small village, especially Chittenango Pottery, which was a world-renowned pottery shop. They're actually right next door to where our museum is. They didn't exist for a particularly long time, but their pottery is world renowned and still collected to this day. That's a fun one. Oh, and sorry, I forgot the big agricultural one. For most of the 1800s, Madison County was the #1 producer of hops in America. It reached its peak in 1880 when we produced 80%. Well, Madison County and Oneida County combined produced 80% of the United States hops. Madison County alone produced 21 million pounds of hops in 1880. And the tradition continues. We still love our beer here in Central New York. On that note as well. Yeah, okay, so now we'll move over to Carly.
Okay, so the industries that are really big in Baker County and Baker City aren't the most unique industries, but they are unique in the fact that most of these things have been happening since people started settling Oregon, which is pretty cool. The three major ones are mining, as in gold mining or mining for ore, logging, and then ranching. So again, we have the Oregon Trail. There are actually some families that are still ranching plots of lands here that they homesteaded. There's a large number of century farms, which are farms that have been in existence and ranched by the same family for over 100 years. So there's a really long history and tradition with that. And when I say ranching, we're talking everything from beef production to grass seed production, which is pretty interesting. Oregon is the #1 producer of grass seed in the country. Most of it is exported, but it is still a really big deal. But the kind of industry that Baker County is specifically known for is gold mining. After people would go over on the Oregon Trail and they struck gold in California and places around there, someone was coming through, what they found in one of the rivers here, they literally just like put their hand into the side of the river and they pulled their hand out with gold. So people started flocking back in droves, and Baker City ended up going from just like a small stop on the Oregon Trail to this huge cultural outpost. Baker City blew up because of mining. All of the other industries came into existence to support the mining industry. Now, Baker City, when it did start to blow up, we maxed out at about 10,000 people in Baker City specifically, and today we still sit at around 10,000 people thanks to that. But to also kind of put in perspective the size of Baker County when it comes to population, today Baker County overall is only 16,000 people, which is not particularly large. And most of those people are still working in ranching, logging, and mining. Yeah, so those are the industries that have kind of persisted over the years. They're what give us our identity. A lot of the families here have been doing all three of those things for a long period of time, and we still do get a lot of hobby miners that'll come through and actually mine the area. But you end up spending more money mining than you do ever end up making, and that's just because all of the easy to get stuff's been gotten. You have to go through extra levels of processing to actually make money now. But it's been really fun because there are a lot of miners that'll come through the museum and they'll say, we didn't find anything, but we have to go back home to South Dakota and show my grandkids that I found gold. So they'll buy like little small flecks of it in the gift shop. It's been a really great sell for the gift shop at the museum. And that's it.
Wow. Start selling gold in our gift shop. Okay. Cool. All right. Question number 1. Here we go. All right, so our next question.
Do we want to open it up to questions from the audience if they have any?
Good.
Sorry, not to usurp.
Oh, no problem. I'll take that myself.
Since Texas is the only place that has audience members.
I think they're ready to hear more.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Well then, we'll continue right on from there to our next question of, are there any industries that have left your area that had a significant impact? How has your community responded to these changes? I know Texas has their guest speaker, Neil Cassidy here. So I'll let you go first, Neil.
Thank you. From 1749 to 1910, this was a ranching area and an international trade area. Very few people lived here. But around 1910, irrigated land was available because of all the massive construction of canals. And they would collect up Midwestern farmers and bring them down by train and sell them farmland. They collected them in the winter when it's really nice here and really not so well in Iowa. And this area became a large producer of fresh fruits and vegetables, citrus being the main fruit, and vegetables, winter vegetables for shipment to the north was second. That lasted, I guess the peak of it would have been the 1970s and 80s, when there were about 500,000 people in the valley, and 40% of the valley was directly working for agricultural firms. Eventually, however, because of two catastrophic freezes back to back, our citrus industry shrunk from 130,000 acres to only 30,000 acres. And other factors crowded out our niche in the vegetable market. It looked like kind of dark on the horizon for us, but then they passed NAFTA, and the valley went from 500,000 people to 1.5 million people in about 20 years, and switched gears to international trade almost exclusively. Also, as an aside, it became a medical mecca for people in northeastern Mexico and southern Texas. We have a very large health industry here. So the valley actually is doing better without agriculture. Which is what I did for 40 years. So.
Wow. That's an interesting one. Okay. Well, thank you. That was, sorry, pardon. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Neil. And Carly, we'll hop over to you.
Okay. So I kind of talked about this in my last question, or my answer to the last question, but there really aren't a lot of industries that have left our area, mostly just because we are so focused on the natural resources locally. But there have been fluctuations in parts of it, specifically looking at logging. A lot of the land in Baker County is publicly owned land, and therefore there are regulations and governmental interactions that need to happen so that these basically contract organizations can come in and log. So going through all of the processes of getting logging permits and trying to figure out if the Bureau of Land Management is going to okay logging in certain areas, if they're going to do it just because they need to decrease the amount of trees there for wildfire purposes, or trying to keep us from having more wildfires because there's a lot of wildfires in the area. All of that goes back and forth. And it's a very controversial topic locally, to kind of, again, put into perspective the fact that when people think of Oregon, they usually think of Portland, which is a very blue area, and there are certain beliefs that are very strong there. Eastern Oregon is very red. We are relatively close to where the male hair occupation was. So there are a lot of people that are very distrustful of government control of land, and the idea of logging and logging rights and who gets to access public land is always a hot button topic. So one year you'll get a lot of logging contractors, other years you won't, and a lot of times those logging contractors will move around the state, even though they're based in Baker County or Baker City, they'll move around the state to where they can get those logging rights. Ranching has decreased over time. The number of ranches is kind of, they've bought up all the smaller ranches, so a lot of the power and control of the good ranching land has kind of become centralized. And because we're getting less and less income from logging and ranching, and basically no income from mining at this point in time, the industry's had to become more diverse. It's been really cool. There's a lot of entrepreneurship going on where people are capitalizing on the beauty of the region. We get a lot of international tourists that'll come through specifically for like hiking or camping trips. There's been a huge jump in tourism. So it's been cool to watch how people have addressed the fact that their previous, like generations old traditions of certain jobs and industries, how they've been able to realize, okay, well, we can't do this anymore, it's not sustainable. What other things can we do to keep Baker County still vibrant and economically viable? So yeah, thanks.
All right. Cool. All right. So now for me. All right. As I alluded to in my last answer, so our first industry was also a quick one to go. Hydraulic cement. It exploded in the area for a while, and they continued to make it, but eventually out by Schenectady and Albany, they found a larger deposit of the limestone necessary, which was easier and cheaper to get. So that went away, but that was all right because the Erie Canal was coming through, so Central New York was able to bounce back pretty quickly, and industry exploded all the canal. Now, for a place like Chittenango, once the canal was moved north in 1918, we were also bypassed a little bit by the railroad as well. A lot of the industry that has sprung up along the canal, such as the pottery factory I talked about. Our museum is actually the location of a canning factory, our side of the canal. And our whole site, like I said, is an industrial site. Most of those shops closed down slowly. The cannery here lasted until the 40s and was for a time the largest employer in Madison County. But the loss of the canal in Chittenango made us have to focus more on generally service industry a lot, and also places like Syracuse, which had a railroad, continued to boom and became huge towns with large manufacturing centers like Crucible Steel, Allied Chemical, and Carrier. Those are notable ones. And in the 80s, many of those factories began to lose jobs as well. Their workers, like my grandfather, he worked for Crucible Steel, I know, and many of our volunteers worked for Carrier, which was the largest manufacturer in central New York for a while. Once they began laying off their workers during a bit of industrial downturn, upstate New York was hard-pressed by that as companies found places both locally, nationally and internationally with less expensive labor. But we have started now to focus more on the tech industry a lot. We're attempting to become a major center for drone technology. Renewable energy is really taking off here in central New York. If you drive anywhere, look up in the hills, you're going to see a giant windmill, generally. So there's that. And so we're slowly bouncing back from the loss of some industry. We're trying to get more high-tech jobs now. Also, in Madison County, we didn't have a ton of factories, but we've had agriculture here. That's been our big thing forever, which has never gone away. We've just alternated a lot. So like I said, in the 1880s, we were producing 80% of the nation's hops. Gradually, that decreased a lot as they moved out to specifically Oregon and Washington, out in the Pacific Northwest. That eventually came to surpass New York State as the top hop-growing place in America. And also, there were a lot of diseases, and the Pacific Northwest just has a better climate in general for growing hops. So that decreased tremendously, and hop growing was a big part of Madison County's culture for a while. But slowly that faded out until about the 80s. and 90s when craft brewing started to come back. There were places like Saranac Brewery out in Utica, which took an interest in it. People had stopped buying as much Utica Club, so they need to figure out a way to get relevant. I still love Utica Club, but some people don't. Anyway, in 2000, so the state recently has taken a big interest in improving brewing in New York State. In 2013, they passed the Farm Brewery Act, which allows beer to be produced at a site that also sells it, and also requires that by a certain date, a certain percentage of all ingredients you use in your beer has to be produced in New York State. And also, breweries get tax breaks and stuff, which has exploded the local brewery scene. In 2010, there were 35 acres of hops in New York. The United States Hops Association didn't even really count New York as a state that grew hops. Last year, 400 acres are now under cultivation for hops, and we account for, I believe, 10% of the American output of hops in New York. So the craft brew scene has really taken off, and a lot of the state has done a tremendous amount of work trying to get that back on the map, and yeah, there you go. There's how we responded to the loss of that industry, and now it's back. And we're coming for you, Oregon. Watch out.
I mean, I do feel like, I don't know, Oregon hops are superior. I'm just going to keep saying that.
All right. Fair.
Well, also though, hops technically in the United States, sorry, I'm going to hot second of beer nerding out. Hops technically on the can grow best on the 45th latitude, north and south of the equator, so there's not necessarily a huge chunk of the country that is able to actually grow hops. Plus they're very labor intensive to harvest. So it's great that New York's getting back to 10% of the hop production. Congratulations.
Yes, and our museum's right at the push of that. We have our Pick and Swig in July, which highlights all of our local craft breweries. Anybody wants to come, give $30. We'll be happy to have you. All right, so any questions from the audience on that area?
Ready to go to third one?
Okay, right on to the third. All right, so since our communities are relatively close to borders, how have international or interstate partnerships changed industry in your area? And Texas, since you guys asked this question, and are also the closest to a border. It's fitting probably that you guys go first.
Okay, so I brought a little visual. I'm going to try and do my best to make sure you guys can see it. This is a map that we use during some of our educational activities. So it was kind of tough to say, we know where the border is now, but you got to kind of look back and see. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, but this big green thing is 1795 New Spain, right? So we were right here where the coal sticks out, basically where we're from. And by 1821, we were Mexico, still a huge amount of land, but part of that area. 1836, and it's kind of wonky, but we had the Republic of Texas, which extended kind of far up there, even going towards Oregon, towards the Rio Grande, including parts of Oklahoma and other states.
We had a very short-lived 1840 Republic of the Rio Grande. You can barely see that little circle right there. And then by 1846, New Mexico once again. And so we have 1848 United States. And then after the Mexican-American War, we have USA and Texas today.
So as you can see, the border and just nationalities have changed tremendously over time. Specifically, if you guys ever heard of Six Flags over Texas, the theme park, we have Six Flags, and we're kind of really almost exploit that here. But we talk about a lot of different cultures that have come. So one big international story I want to tell you guys about This is really a rags to riches story. There was a man by the name of Andrew Paris. He was son of Greek immigrants living in Detroit. His parents opened they operated a tobacco shop, and one year he took a train down to Mexico City. There he was able to import sweets, and he started like an international trade business as well. He was also multilingual, so he knew Spanish, and this really helped him bridge that trade gap. During World War II, his family had trouble finding really anything sweet with the scrap drives, with all the rubber going towards the war, metal as well. He traveled to McAllen, which is right here on the border, and he began a small business importing and manufacturing candy. He saw that as a demand, right? Sugar was in shortage, so was latex since the Depression era, the 1930s. So he, at the time, he was supporting Mexican gum plants in Matamoros. Matamoros is right across the river from us. It's a border town as well, within our vicinity. And he started by just importing regular sticks of gum. They were kind of like Wrigley's copies. And one day, this is where the light bulb moment went off for him. He was in the streets of McAllen, and he saw some kids in a fight. They were fighting over something. He went in there, broke it up, and he asked them, what's going on? He realized they were fighting over a piece of gum. It was that in demand. These kids, from there he realized, these kids, they didn't have toys for a long time. They didn't get tires for bicycles. So we saw the demand was there, and it was a demand enough to, have some kids start fighting in the street. Another funny thing that I read and I heard is that kids were renting gum for 35 cents a chew at the time. So between them, they would have the same piece of gum for 3 weeks. So he thought, why is it to this extent when it should be, a penny for each stick? He saw this, he went into Mexico, and within about 48 hours, he cornered the market in the whole Western Hemisphere on gum and latex for Mexico. Before World War II, gum was supplied from Africa and imported from Britain, but that whole trade route was messed up. He saw the opportunity, went over there, and this guy blew up in fame. He dumped bubble gum on the market, the kids, and with kids come parents and their money. The media went crazy. This guy, for a few months, dated Marilyn Monroe. He was on the front of, I think, like Time magazine at the time. He was a very photographable dude. He was a very, charming guy as well. So he went into like the stratosphere of fame, and eventually this really charged the whole bubblegum industry. A lot of competitors came out. I think like Bazooka and Wrigley's and a lot of those others. But his manufacturing and his distribution company is on Business 83, which is here in McAllen. It doesn't operate anymore. Now I think it was like a laser tag center for a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what it is now, but it has like a weird, somebody painted it blue. It looks really funny, but the building is still there. It's about an entire city block, and that was the basis of its operation during the time. So World War II was somebody who saw opportunity, took advantage of international trade and industry, and found the market. That's one of those really rags to riches stories. That's a little anecdote.
That's really something there. Yeah, all right. Bubblegum.
Yeah.
Thank you, Texas, for that, guys. Okay, cool. So Carly, you want to give us Oregon's take on this?
Yeah, so we don't really have anything quite like that to that extent. But for us, our borders are Washington and Idaho, and then we also border California, but Baker County does not border California. So our closest are Idaho and Washington. We have a lot of international tourism, which doesn't, usually when you think international tourism, you think like New York City, you think Las Vegas, like you think of the places that are like really big and populated, but there is a huge obsession overseas with the concept of the Wild West. The idea of the Wild West is like a really big deal, it's iconic, and Eastern Oregon being on the Oregon Trail, as well as like the backdrop for a lot of, well, not a lot of new movies, but at least one Western musical called Paint Your Wagon, which starred Clint Eastwood. It was filmed in Baker County. So we get a lot of tourists coming through on that. They want that authentic experience, and considering there's only, what is it, the last I read it was only 5 people per mile, like per cubic mile in population density in Baker County, you really get that being out in the middle of nowhere, Wild West kind of feeling. So there's been a lot of money and attention put into marketing for that and partnering with tourism companies in China and Japan, specifically to try to get more international tourism. Not to continue, it's kind of funny that Derek talked about hop so much, because that was going to be a big part of this part for us, and that Oregon beer is a really big deal. A large chunk of the hops that are grown, that are used for brewing beer, are grown either in Oregon or Washington, and we are right in the center of hop country. So there are a lot of very good breweries all over Oregon that are very hop forward, that brew very hop forward beers. But Baker County has one major internationally acclaimed brewery called Barley Browns. They are actually currently celebrating their 20th anniversary of brewing. So they started in 1998, before the big craft beer boom started. So they were really before their time, and a lot of the hops are relatively local, within a 150-mile radius of the brewery. And the international collaboration with that is that because we have these connections with the hop growers, because Barley's has been ordering and purchasing hops since long before there was a hop shortage and it was hard to find hops for beer because of so many craft breweries popping up over the country, it's easier for our brewery to collaborate with other international breweries, specifically over in England, to kind of do a hop trade, a hop share, because before the hop growing industry in the United States kind of blew back up, a majority of the hops being grown and used were coming from England and overseas. So it's kind of nice for us to be able to share our wealth now, because there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of beers that have been brewed in both places. And then I talked about grass seed earlier, but a lot of our grass seed that's grown in Baker County is shipped out internationally to other countries. But yeah, everything comes back to beer, you know?
Yes, because I think I have connect back to beer too. Okay, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm really drinking. But no. So here, for us. So here in central New York, well, I'll just start off again with the Erie Canal. It's my thing. The canal, if you look at the map, you generally got to look at it. I think that this actually is a partnership, international partnership, international rivalry thing. The canal, if you look at the route, it would make sense for the canal to go, if you're going to connect the shortest route between the Great Lakes and the Hudson River, you go from Albany to Lake Ontario. However, New York State and realized that that really would be a much more efficient route than the St. Lawrence River, and all the trade would still go to Montreal instead of New York City, because there's a little thing called Niagara Falls that separates Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So that made us the canal to Buffalo, and like I said, the canal was a big industrial mover, so if we put it up to Ontario, cities like Buffalo and Rochester, who knows what would happen to that. But I'll move on. Central New York, as with much of America really, but the Northeast, we just experienced wave after wave of immigration, really. First with the Irish, Germans generally, then Italians, Eastern Europeans, which are still large populations out here, and presently many people from Southeast Asia and Middle East are moving to Central New York, bringing a new distinctive culture, and each one brings distinctive cultures. I'm going to talk about some Germans, specifically ones who make beer. Maybe we should do a talk on beer one of these times. But we're already there pretty much. Brewery started out in Utica, close to my heart and liver, I suppose. The FX Matt's Brewing Company. So Francis Xavier Matt, he studied brewing. He was born in Baden, Germany, where he learned how to brew from German brew masters. Came over here to America, and Utica has an enormous German population, and a very vibrant German community as well. And he started brewing beer out there. Famously, Utica Club, which started out as a club soda during Prohibition. FX Matt's got a little tip from a congressman who was his friend that apparently Prohibition was going to be repealed soon, so he started illegally brewing Utica Club a few months in advance of when he was supposed to do that. So Utica Club became the first beer ever served in America after Prohibition, which you will see on every single one of their cans. So beers like Utica Club and Matt's were pretty popular for quite some time in central New York, but around the 80s, the population had started to decline. FX had died by that point, but his grandson, FX Matt's II, which I don't really know how they figured out the numbering there, but anyway, he also caught on early to the craft brewing thing. He again went to Germany to learn exactly how his grandfather had learned how to make beer, and he studied with German beer masters. Also, heard about this brewery out in Massachusetts called Sam Adams, where currently worked at Sam Adams, I believe, right? Yes. You got a big brewery. Sam Adams, FX Matt Brewery was one of the first places to produce Sam Adams beer, and also he founded the Saranac line, which has taken off and is huge. Saranac is an internationally known beer company now. They still make Utica Club, and it's still great, but so is Saranac these days. So that was one of our Max stories. Saranac's still doing well, and we have innumerable other examples of immigrants who made a big beer. But all right, there's my story. I'm sticking to it, I guess. And also, just one other fun story now. Chobani yogurt, that's about 40 miles south of here. It was founded by a Turkish immigrant in South Edmonton, Hamdi Ulukaya. He immigrated here in 1994, founded Chobani in 2002, and that, as we all know, has taken off tremendously. Was their Greek yogurt. They recently, a few years ago, brought in a Turkish yogurt expert and everything to help make their yogurt even better. And their bottle, 10% of all stock at Chobani is now owned by their employees and stuff. So they're an ideal workplace as well. And he's worth $1.7 billion over there. So he came from a small Turkish village and made quite the fortune for himself out of yogurt. All right, so there I think is our thing. So now I guess we'll open it up to the floor.
I think we're really good, but I'd like to say thank you guys for your diligent work in making hops for the rest of the country. I know we enjoyed it. Okay. I know we have a few local breweries here, so I really like the suggestion of maybe doing a beer presentation.
I don't think we can serve some.
Well, the thing is that hops aren't always like the bittering agents that's used historically in beer. So it'd be interesting to hear about how other areas that might not have the same access to hops, how creative other things have happened.
Sure.
I mean, there's beer that's made out here with fruit tips instead of hops. So you never know.
I'm sorry, I heard Lee Neal mentioned it. You guys got a bunch of canals down there. I'm just curious about that. Those things.
About our irrigation system and the canals.
Oh, the irrigation canals.
Yeah, mostly irrigation, not necessarily for travel, most of them. We have the natural river, which is the Rio Grande, and that's the water source for this entire area.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. There's a bunch of reservoirs for that. Okay. So I think Carly's gone, so.
Sorry,
Oh, all right.
my
Well.
laptop decided it was gonna die.
Good thing. Good thing we're almost over. So, yeah. So anything else from anybody? Questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you guys, it's always great seeing your faces.
Yes, it's great. Maybe we'll see you guys in person in Kansas City or something.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Seriously, we could recreate this
Yeah, in person. Yeah.
over a beer.
Yeah. Or two. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope everyone watching enjoys it. And tune in next time as we talk about public-private land use, I believe.
Yes.
If you liked Carly's answer to the second question, you're going to love this next one.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye guys.
Guys, bye.